will be busy, bringing in contraband goods, just like Nigeria has experienced over the years. Right. So it's indeed talking about one other aspect that the AU had also launched the single African air transport market. So there is this unity among African nations now at different levels, both economically, socially, and otherwise. But the free movement also should be checked, because if not, it's not going to augur well for any nation. You get visa on arrival, and much more should be explained on this very policy, because just last week the federal government announced it, and many critics, they decided to say, look, it's a big risk if you have to do that. But if it's a program, African nations,
it's an integration model.
Exactly,
and it's on its own. In its context, it's a good instrument, to integrate African countries. I think what the caution there is to ensure that all member countries, complied with the provisions of the protocol, because, like you said, Nigeria has been at the receiving end. Some of our neighboring countries have implemented that protocol, in the breach. So for it to go continental now, there should be, a very deliberate, attempt to ensure that every member country complies, with whatever instrument, that they have signed on.
It's been difficult for ECOWAS protocol to be adhered to. Just ECOWAS protocol, which of course is about the few African countries. Now we're talking about AU.
All right,
it's an enlarged space now that control is going to be a very difficult thing to achieve. But if it's achieved, it's the best pattern of bringing about integration on the African continent. All right, let's take a short break now. When we come back, we will continue with a review of 2019 highlights of Good Morning Nigeria.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
They swore an oath to serve our fatherland and defend the people. They traded their freedom, comfortable homes, and mortgaged their lives on the battleground for our unity and peaceful living. These are the great, fearless, loyal, and committed Nigerian armed forces who risked their lives courageously to safeguard our borders. But in the line of duty, many never returned. Nigerians, arise, let's celebrate our fallen heroes. Put on the remembrance emblem with pride to support the incapacitated and families of our fallen heroes.
It is indeed befitting to honor the memory of the gallant hearts of the men who paid the supreme sacrifice to keep the country united.
President Muhammadu Buhari enjoins all ministries, parastatals, religious and corporate bodies to donate generously to the Emblem Appeal Launch. Send your donations to these accounts. Account name, Emblem Appeal Launch. Account number 393-200-7526. EcoBank Nigeria PLC.
Nigeria is our country, and it's the only country we have. Irrespective of religion, tribe, the heroes of our past did their best to take Nigeria to where it is today. It will be unfortunate, I repeat, unfortunate, absolutely, if we don't keep Nigeria intact. We must put our differences behind. We must let everybody know that human beings cannot live together without some differences. But at the end of the day, our country is Nigerian. It must always come first.
Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
We have come to the end of another successful year, and we wish to appreciate all those that mean so much to us. Our sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, and above all, You, our esteemed viewer, together we made 2019 great. Together we shall make 2020 even greater. That is why we say thank you. This is wishing you Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
All right, if you just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and right on time as we begin today's highlight of 2019. And we're starting with the pension entitlement for governors.
Well, so this, triggered a national debate on all media platforms and an edition of the program presented by Jumai and Kensi.
So let's begin with Professor Sharima Osumbo. Of course, you are a former senator before you became a former governor, and of course, you remain a professor of law. What's your reaction to what's playing out with regard to, some have described it as a humongous benefits by way of pension that former state governors, deputies, and in some cases, former speakers and deputy speakers are entitled to by laws, some would argue validly passed by the respective state houses of assembly? Well, the concern being expressed by Nigerians is understandable, given the economic situation in the country, given the dearth or scarcity of a lot of infrastructure. People are yearning for development, and yet the resources are scarce. And therefore, any effort, attempt, or steps being taken to deplete, as it were, the public funds by way of expenditure into areas that are not seen to be directly impacting on the lives of the ordinary people is viewed with some concern. And even to the extent that some people will regard it as wastage or a luxury which the nation or the states cannot afford. In particular, in some instances, because of the scale, the extent of the benefits that these laws provide for the aforementioned persons, that is governors, deputy governors, and so forth and so on. That because I say this from the basis of a realization that the Constitution itself, which is the basic law of Nigeria, provides for the payment of pensions and gratuities to the president and the vice president to the extent of the remuneration of the incumbents. That is in Section 84 of the Constitution. Section 124 of the Constitution also makes provision for payment to governors and deputy governors to the extent of the law made by the State House of Assembly. As you said, these laws are made legitimately. But the concern is that in many cases, their entitlement is perceived as being excessive in relation to available resources. That is the concern. And I believe we have to address it in this way. And for me, it's always, I'm not sure that many of the critics advert or those who have expressed concern, avert their minds to the provisions of the Constitution, that these things have constitutional basis. And the houses of assembly that prescribe these humongous amounts are the elected representatives of the people. So this boils down to how do elected lawmakers reflect the yearnings and aspirations of their constituents when they make laws.
As you said, recently we have been faced with this situation, and but I think we should look at it dispassionately from various angles. One, what is the legality of the state houses of assembly passing laws to give incredible amounts of money to governors, deputy governors, and in some cases speakers and deputy speakers pension? As the learned professor said, Section 124 of the Constitution is the provision that provides for that. However, there is a proviso in that section. That section says, is talking about salaries and remuneration, not pension. Salaries and remuneration. And salary and remuneration connote that you are paying a serving officer who is sitting in office, and that is what you are supposed to be paying him monthly or so. And the additional proviso is that it should not be more than what the National Revenue Allocation Fiscal Commission has prescribed. So to me, the Constitution has remained silent as to whether governors and deputy governors should be paid pension. There is a difference between salary and remuneration and then pension. This therefore leads us to the fact that being a federal system, the state has its own independence in terms of any issue that may be, that is not going to be on exclusive legislative list. And therefore, pension is on concurrent legislative list of the Constitution. The state houses of assembly can therefore legislate. So ordinarily, any law passed by the House of Assembly regulating pension of governors and deputy governors ordinarily can be said to be legal. But is it moral for you to pay a sitting a retired governor 10 million naira every month? What?
You see, I'll talk very little about the moral aspect because the speaker is here who will talk about that. But let us understand this. Section 70 of the Constitution provides for payment of salaries and allowances to senators and members of the federal, of the House of Representatives. Equally, Section 124, subsection 5 in particular, provides that a state House of Assembly can make laws for the provision of pension to former governors, deputy governors, and so on. That is where the problem comes. Now, unlike Section 84, subsection 5 does not limit the amount of pension to be paid to a former governor. And that's why all the states that were paying jumbo, monthly allowances and so on, legally were correct. Because when in the case of the president, for example, on that section 111, and the third schedule says even the president of the Federal Republic, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, all they are entitled to is, when they retire, all they are entitled to is their annual salary. Whereas in the case of states, I'm sure they took advantage of this loophole that on that section 124, subsection 5, there is no such limitation as to what the House of Assembly can do. And so, because almost all the state houses of assembly in the country today are in the pockets of the governors, except maybe Zamfara is coming up now. These governors lure them into doing these things. And of course, there is a constitutional window where there is no limit as to the amount of pension that should be paid. So legally, a state House of Assembly, unless we amend that provision, may be paid any amount that the state House of Assembly says they should be paid. But the problem is this. Section 70 provides that every senator or member of House of Representatives is entitled to salary. If you are entitled to salary, you cannot be collecting pension again. I think that is just the issue.
Zamfara State having insecurity problems over 8 to 10 years. Then it is among the poorest states in Nigeria, where the people represented, people elected us into executive offices to come into power. There is no reason why we will allow to pay this amount of money for the former governors, former deputy governors, former speaker, and even former deputy speakers, because this amount of money is amounted over 702 million annually. With this amount of money in Zamfara, you can, you understand, do so many things that people of the State will benefit from this sort of amount. In respect of the security situation, our educational level situation, health situation in Zamfara State. But Zamfara State has assembly. This assembly that elected that law. And for now, as I say, we are for the people concerned, not for us. We come and far, we decided to refill that law because there is no any important on that law to allow in Zamfara currently to pay that amount of money for the former governors and the former deputy governors. So that's the reason that we refilled let that law in Zamfara State.
All right, that was pension entitlements for governors. Of course, development that was, generated great public discussion. I remember, Kieran, Daily Trust did an extensive graphic, report on it with, the states and the governors, that were concerned.
Yes, if you watched our review yesterday on Good Morning Nigeria, where we had the former Director General of NTA, Professor Tony Redia, he made it very clear, to say, look, civil servants do 35 years of service. When they retire, you pay them a fraction of their salary. And then someone who governed a state for 8 years, at most is 8 years, and then you now have structured a kind of pension that is so huge that, in fact, it should be questionable. Recall the publication by the former governor of Zamfara State, who said, look, he was collecting 10 million naira every month as a pension. And I don't know how many states that can really do that. And I'm happy that the current governor of that state had to go back to the House of Assembly and they reversed whatever law that they put in place to do that. So it's not just annoying.
It was a very strong story that, of course, will be remembered in 2019. Now, since 1999, when our democratic dispensation began, Nigerians have had very high expectations on the dividends and, of course, impact that, the return to democracy would make on our lives.
And this year marks 20 years of the journey, and Good Morning Nigeria captured the gains recorded during the period. It was a presentation by Blessing and Kinsley.
What is there to say about 20 years of uninterrupted democracy in Nigeria?
Well, Kingsley, to start with, as they say, if you want to know how far you have traveled on a journey, you must be able to know where you started from, the point of commencement. So to be able to assess how far we've gone and what achievements we've recorded, we have to look back at where we were on the 28th of May, 1999, and compare it with what we've been able to achieve since then. What we've been able to achieve, I can group into two main categories. Those achievements that are tangible and others that are intangible. You cannot see them, you cannot touch them, but they are of immense benefit to the people of Nigeria. And looking back at where we were on the 28th of May, 1999, of course, we were under military rule, which meant that those who were responsible for the governance of Nigeria did not come in by way of the will of the people. They imposed themselves. It was just who had the superior firepower. And whoever had the superior firepower assumed power. Therefore, they didn't come in through an expression of the will of the people. But since the inception of the restoration of democracy in 1999, we've seen government being a reflection of the will of the people, largely, by and large. Not in all cases. There have been a few aberrations here and there, but by the general evolution of the process, we've seen that government is now answerable to the people that put them there.
Is this the kind of democracy that we looked out for in 1999? And what has been the experience for you so far?
Thank you. Democracy must naturally evolve. And if after 3-4 years you truncate it every time, it will never grow. But now we have seen it for 20 years running, unbroken. That therefore means democracy is growing. Whatever the mistakes we have made, we have learned from those mistakes and we have progressed. So I believe that it's a better deal for us, it's a better deal for Nigerians, and it will continue to grow. We'll continue to learn from the mistakes and we'll continue to make progress.
One of the guests in the soundbite talked about attitudinal change to what we're experiencing or what we're experimenting with. How has this resonated with Nigerians over the years in making it work, and has it come to stay?
Yes, you observe that Nigerians themselves prefer democracy to any other kind of governance. Over the years, you have seen that they are enthusiastic in electing their leaders. They enjoy the opportunity to elect their leaders. They love the fact that they have a say in who rules them. And they can ask questions. They do ask questions, which was not possible under the experience we've had in Nigeria. So I believe that Nigerians prefer democracy, and they will also love to see it grow until it gets to where they really want it to be.
Part of the commonest complaint that we often hear is the so-called recruitment process. Now, the view is out there that in a wide variety of cases, the best often doesn't get elected, whether at the local, state, or federal level. And then we have to worry about our recruitment process. And two issues that arise from this, the so-called Godfather syndrome, and the fact that persons who are of less nobler intentions hijack the political structures and are the so-called political leaders in their communities. What are your thoughts?
Thank you very much for this question. Let me quickly just respond to Prof. and additional. Prof. Made a statement that's got to inviting people to come and shop. That's actually demeaning for the political parties. Why I'm saying so is that when you look at it at the moment now, the people in government, jokingly, are they chopping stone? That's the question. We are here in Nigeria when you saw Pullion vans, 3 Pullion vans being moved into a political party leader's house. What was it? Is it a bank? Was that place a bank or probably a business arena? So, and believe me, what I said earlier was very, very clear. I said other political parties have other issues, very new ideas to put into the system. We are not begging to be in that position or be carried along. No, and then when additional also mentioned the issue of winner-take-all syndrome, and at the same time you seem to be still contesting election after election has already been won and lost. The truth is that election does not seem to be seen to be not to be won, but it seems to be won fairly and squarely. If not, we can see what is happening in our tribunals. We have large cases of tribunal because people are not happy with the way in which the process takes place. So what we postulate and what we theorize is we are giving suggestions that can help the nation to move. But of course, it's your choice not to take these particular suggestions, as the case may be. You are very, very much aware, coming back to your question, that when you come to the issue of recruitment, the recruitment exercise is not being fair to majority of the political parties. The younger ones are craving to be in power. They are tired of the recycling of these particular leaders. And these leaders only take their solace and their strength from what they've been able to acquire from the system. We know the history of each and every some of these particular people who are now present leaders in our political system. Majority of them did not have money, neither did they have any particular political training, but when they got in, they were able to harness a lot of wealth for themselves. And that is the reason why, for as beautiful and professional and academic erudite as Professor Usumbo was, when he contested election in Edo State, He lost. But when he lost, it doesn't mean that he's not qualified. He is far, far better qualified. But because when you look at it, probably he doesn't have that enough war chest to have challenged particular people in the position. If he has, he will have been one of the best governors that Edo State will have seen. But these are some of the issues that we are talking about. People like us, there are better individuals in Nigeria, younger ones who can do better, who can transform this country, but the opportunity seems not to be there.
Indeed, so many gains to count, and one of which, I mean, without saying so much, is the fact that we were able to transit Kieran, from one civilian government to another successfully and peacefully too, and that was quite a big one for us.
From one political party to
another political party. Indeed, moving a sitting government, a sitting administration without the usual violence that normally would have been seen in other climes. So that was a great leap for us in 2019. Yes. Now,
yes, but there are lessons to learn, Claire. In this. In fact, just before 1999, when we metamorphosed into a civilian administration, the men and women who had the resources to join politics were not necessarily those who should be there. If you listen to one argument there in that review, that people took positions they were not supposed to take, basically because there are people who are available and who could do one or two things to be able to get there when they're not the right people to get there. And internal democracy has not been resolved in all the political parties. So these are some of the things we have to tidy up.
Indeed, there are room for improvement. But again, one aspect that, for us, is gender inclusion. Precisely 2019, so a lot of women coming out, indicating their interest, for elective posts, and young men, young women, that came out to contest. That was a leap for us in terms of gender inclusion. And this is an aspect that interests me very much. In 2019, we have the upscaling of involvement of the subnational governments in federal government social investment schemes, quite a number of them. And this is a social safety net that this administration broadened and, of course, took to different parts of the country. There have been incremental, increase in the number of states that have taken part in these schemes, and they cut across areas such as provision of meals, skills development, advanced trainings, and so on. And the intent, Kieran, is not just to alleviate poverty, but also to drive or accelerate our progress towards meeting the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, yes, Claire, indeed. And these programs have been taken to schools, marketplaces, rural, as well as urban communities. Good Morning Nigeria paid particular attention to the social investment schemes of government. The edition was presented by Kinsley and Claire.
Well, let's begin. In nearly 3 years into the SIP, that's to say the social investment programs, what is the scorecard?
So it has been a very interesting journey. So far we've covered the 526,000 young people, graduates and non-graduate, that are working with the NPower program. We've set up 7 hubs, technology hubs, that are encouraging young people to apply, to pitch with innovative ideas, and we're trying to get support for them to be able to have their ideas manifest. We've got over 9.5 million children being fed in over 56,000 schools in 31 states. We just started in Ikiti. We are feeding over 101,000 we'll feed, where cooks are feeding. We're paying cooks, 101,000 cooks to feed these children. So directly, they're receiving their funds. We've set up a social register now in 27 states, but we're training people in all the other states too. So we're in the process of cleaning up their own data. So we have over 800,000 poor and vulnerable households with all their data. The situation they're in, the assets they hold, sizes of households, gender, educational levels. We have all that information relating to those people, out of which about half of them are being given cash transfers. The only thing that has delayed our ramping up is we have been trying to procure agents in the new states who will pay them, because we have to get agents to pay them directly in the locations where they live. And we have over 1.7 million beneficiaries of the market money, trader money, and farmer money in the JEEP program. So I think we're well on course, trying to address a lot of the challenges that we face in this country, unemployment, poverty. We're trying to stimulate growth in the rural economy, and we're really making an impact around the country.
The story from Kwara is a very encouraging one, a very beautiful one. We were the pioneer state, among the pioneer states that started in 2016. When we started at the initial stage, people never really took us serious because they felt it was one of those government programs that would come and would fade away. And even when we went for capturing, for them to be in the program, a lot of them were sending their children forward instead of coming forward. But when the money started coming in, they now discovered that this is real after all. And the pattern of the payment was so beautiful because the money was directly from the federal government to the beneficiary, no intermediary. And I think this is another aspect that we really need to appreciate, because most of our government programs of the past did not really succeed because of the intermediary link. But this one, there is none. So there is no issue of fraud. There is no issue of somebody trying to sideline another person. So the people were really able to come out and they embraced the program, and they are even demanding for increase in the total number of people that are benefiting presently in Kwara. For now, we have 10,176 beneficiaries in the state. And the way the program is structured is such that it is household-based. It is not about individual. The money goes to the household. And in the house, we expect the household to present a caregiver and an alternate that will be representing them to collect the money, since every member of the household cannot come forward to collect the money. The caregiver we always prefer to be a female, because we feel the female is responsible for the daily upkeep of the house, taking care of the children, providing for needs of the family, including the needs of the man. So the caregiver are usually female, so we have more female as caregiver. We prefer the men to now be alternate to the caregiver. This caregiver comes forth to collect money on the days of payment.
How much is this, and what is the frequency of payment?
Yeah, the frequency is for every 2 months, bi-monthly, because we cannot be paying every month. The logistics involvement in terms of so many other things will be very, very huge for the federal government. So we pay bi-monthly, 6 payments in a year, in the sum of 10,000 naira. And another beautiful thing about the program is that we have a program ID for every beneficiary household that is in the program. And then for the payment providers, they also have their own payment ID card. So for any household that is coming for payment, you must be able to prove that you are a member of the program by wearing your tag, the program ID card, and of course you present your payment card and you get paid, because we are doing electronic payment right now.
The program started in Oyo State in 2016. Oyo State is one of the 9 states that started the program in 2016. The capturing of the benefiting households was made by an appointed payment service provider, and that is a Stanbic IBTC bank. This bank went into the communities to do the capturing of the enlisted benefiting households, represented by a caregiver, preferably a woman, and an alternate. So the capturing was done by Stanbic IBTC Bank, and the payment started in December 2016. The first payment was made in January 2017, and the local government that started the program in Oyo State was just 6. Later, another 6 local governments joined. Presently, the program is into 19 local government areas in Oyo State. Up till May 2018, the total number of our beneficiaries in Oyo State was 12,806. But along the line, what is known as a PMT, proxy means test, was done, and a good number of beneficiaries in Oyo State was dropped. And up till April this year, we now have 4,332 benefiting households enjoying the program in Oyo State. When we started, there are some challenges that we encountered on the field. The first one was when the capturing was done, the bank officials worked far into the night to do the capturing. And when the data got back to their headquarters in Ibadan, those that were captured, those photographs took in the night could not appear. And a good number of them could not be paid when the first payment was done. And the issuance of ATM card was done by this bank, and the beneficiaries were told that as soon as payment is done, they will receive an alert on their phone. And the majority of these beneficiaries do not have a handset, so they could not get alert.
In December 2015, the president made his inaugural budget speech, and that's where he announced the SIP. And the components, as mentioned, there is one that has not actually been seen to be working. I would like to know. That is the one that is free education to science-based engineering, mathematics, and the rest of them. And I haven't heard much about that. And even though in 2017, we still have some money allocated for that particular thing. I would like to know how far. But from what we have had here, you can see there is a divergence between the plans laid out at the federal level and what we are seeing, right there. And remember when the deputy governor, Osun State, came here, we also had a little problem about how people are doing certain things that are not in line with what has been planned. How can Oyo State stay here and be telling us this story when indeed they should have known some of these things? Network problem wasn't to you. It didn't start with them. It's household based. And if you know these people are illiterate, what were the plans made? So you see a divergence between plans and implementation. And I just hope this is not replicated in many states, because Mrs. Uwa is here and she must be embarrassed to hear this kind of story. You're not embarrassed?
No.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a process we have started, right?
Yes.
And we're addressing them.
Okay.
So as he said, this payment service provider has really dealt away with. When we found that there were issues on targeting, as he said, we had to go back and do it again, because we have to make sure we have the right people on board.
Yeah, let me
so this is what happened in 2015, 2016. But he said now it's much better.
It's been cleared up. All right, Professor Bassey.
You see the point I'm making there. You see that point is valid. Remember when this program started, you used the World Bank.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. And that's the main reason that was put out to the public that time, why the conditional cash transfer that was existing in CGS office, conditional grant scheme, was abandoned. Of course, you know, you said it many times here, we appeared together, that that was politicized, you know, and you are bringing a registrar that is, of course, objectively derived. And even the president in that speech mentioned that the World Bank donors are helping to, produce an authentic registrar that will reflect the poorest and the marginalized, you know. And coming to hear this, that they went to the field without such a registrar. I mean,
no.
we were all here that time to know that they're supposed to go to the field with a registrar to know enlist people.
That's not what he said. He said that, you know, there were 9 states, as he said. Kwara is one of them. We adopted the registers that had been prepared, developed by the states working with the World Bank, even in the previous administration. All the states were made that offer to start this register. Only 8 states, and Borno, we use the IDP register. So we had that data, and we didn't see why we should start again. So we tried to validate what was already on ground so that we could start the cash transfers as early as possible. So we adopted the register that was initially there in Oyo and in Kwara. This is the problem. When we went to validate, we found that there were discrepancies. There were people that were actually, and the important thing is, it's a process. We're trying to ensure that we get to the poorest people. This PMT is actually, it ranks people. When we go to each household, we ask them issues, size of household, roofing material, assets, gender. All of that is entered into this, and then it has a PMT formula. It ranks them from the poorest to the least poor. This is to sort the people that maybe the community has said. In this same Kwara, there's a community in which the Bale said, I too am poor. Yeah. And there was nothing anybody could do to argue. But when we visited his household and we saw that he had a car, majority of the people there either had bicycles or not, we removed him.
All right, one of my favorite episodes there, talking about the social investment program of the federal government. Now, the spate of deadly clashes at protests, especially here in the Federal Capital Territory, by some Islamic sects, precisely Islamic Movement of Nigeria, also known as the Shiite, led to its proscription in 2019.
And this indeed prompted a discussion on the issue and how to address it.
The IMN, or the Shiites, represent, every Shia community around the world represents an infrastructure upon which Iran plans, fund, and execute its subversive activities. And the IMN in Nigeria is no exception to that. And for quite a long time, Nigeria has been regarded as a hotbed because of our size and number, and a potential site for Iranian Hezbollah subversive activities. So this is why whatever the IMN are doing is not a surprise to those that actually know the problem or the intention of the Iranian government vis-a-vis the Hezbollah. So what they are doing is nothing other than their blind quest for the setting up of an Islamic Republic of Nigeria. This has been the agitation, and this started as far back as 1986 during the Funtua Declaration, when El-Zakzaki declared that there is no allegiance to any government in Nigeria, be it local government, state government, or the federal government. And it is because of that, in every state of the federation, the Shiites have what they call a governor, but is referred to as an Amir, They have local government chairmen. So for this reason, it is very clear that we can say with confidence that the Islamic movement have for so long been running a government within a government, because when they are going on procession, ordinarily they are supposed to apply for police permit, but they don't do that because they do not recognize the existence of any government or any agency of government. This is what has been happening for the past 4 decades in this country. So as such, the ban coming as it did is timely, though it is better late than never. And viewers need to understand one thing. The Islamic movement in Nigeria, as the Shiites are known, is an usurpation. The actual Islamic Movement Association in Nigeria is a registered entity, registered on the 22nd of September 1986, with its head office at number 33B, Efelodun Street, Ako Oba, Agege, Lagos. So they tactfully removed association and refer to themselves as Islamic movement in Nigeria. So for the members of the unsuspecting public will assume they are registered. They are not registered.
I'm not quite sure the proscription order will bring about the desired effect. Listening to Muhammad Ali in Kaduna, I'm saying to myself, if truly this group is not registered, I don't know if you've seen the court order. I have seen, and it's the case of the Attorney General of the Federation and Islamic Movement of Nigeria.
In Nigeria?
Yes. So if it is not registered, as Muhammad Ali has alleged, then there are questions about the parties that are before the court. And this is speaking from my position as a lawyer. And I need to make that very clear. Kingsley, you know, and Ali, you also know that the question of juristic personality comes in. And I mentioned this to say there needed to be a greater rigor in responding to this movement than what we have so far seen. This is the 10th anniversary of the killing of the gentleman who was the head of Boko Haram. It started in July 2009. This is the 10th anniversary. And one would expect that 10 years with this kind of experience, we will have a greater rigor, will bring greater rigor to responding to these kinds of situations. I think the proscription order was a knee-jerk reaction, and we needed to do a little bit more background work, background checks, strategize properly in terms of responding to that. So now the group is saying, well, it's a joke, it's a huge joke. Who knows the next step that will happen? And are we really in a position to say that we want to deal with a second insurgency? These are the fundamental questions that we really need to ask ourselves.
I understand where my friend Mike is coming from. He's actually looking at the technicality of the laws. But you actually put it very clear. Boko Haram is not registered. If you go to, for example, the United Kingdom or the US, they have actually proscribed many organizations in hundreds in number. And most of these organizations don't have any registration anyway. They don't even they may not have presence even in the United States or the United Kingdom, but nevertheless, they were actually proscribed or banned.
Well, we thank you for staying with us up to this moment on Good Morning Nigeria as we review some of the editions that made 2019. For now, let's take a short break. When we get back, we'll continue with the preview. Stay with us.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
My name is Balaunti. I'm the Managing Director of Petroleum Product Marketing Company, a subsidiary of NNPC. There are significant price discrepancy between Nigeria and its neighbors across Africa. There's a discrepancy of between 150 to 250 naira. That creates an incentive for arbitrage, whereby smuggling triumphed by taking petroleum products across the neighbors so that they can be sold at higher price. While the smugglers are making the money, Nigeria is paying for it. And that payment is distorting everything that we do in terms of planning, in terms of our ability to fund, and thereby taking money that is meant for development. The introduction of this Operation White will have a reduction of close to 6 million liters on daily basis, which if you take an average of 150, translate to a saving of over 1 billion naira every day. That is the benefit of Operation White, and we have started seeing the great benefit.
Chief, good morning, sir. You are here already?
No, now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jab questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Better.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, now the disturbing news that Nigerians may be exposed to unhealthy cooking oil in, of course, markets across the country triggered concern all over the country. Now, NAFDAC, SUN, and other health experts were on high alert to rid the markets of those products.
And Good Morning Nigeria created a platform to profile solutions to the issue. Claire and Kinsley presented that edition.
You probably would tell us the distinguishing features between palm oil and palm kernel oil, and in particular, why is it that some palm oil would appear to be redder than red?
Well, if you look at the palm fruit, you have the mesocarp and the kernel. The oil from the mesocarp is what we call the palm oil. That is orange-red in color. Now, the oil from the kernel is what we call the palm kernel oil. That is light yellow in color. Now, when you are processing palm oil, you process for two grades. That is special palm oil and then the technical palm oil. The technical palm oil is actually made as raw materials for industrial use, for soap making, for detergent production, and all the other sorts. But traders now take the technical palm oil, which is left in a pit over a period of time, because you need to accumulate it before you can sell. You know, they take the technical palm oil that is now bleached, you know, by the sun, and add a colorant. Some of these colorants are mainly azo dyes. And these azo dyes are made for both food and non-food uses. In fact, at the moment in America and Europe, they have regulated the use of these azo dyes in food products. But here in Nigeria, because of ignorance, you still find these traders using azo dyes that are even meant for textiles, azo dyes that are made for plastics, and adding it to oil just to make the color attractive to probably now attract buyers. So that is the major danger in what they currently sell in the market. Otherwise, if you buy your oil directly from the producers, maybe people that have the oil palm estates, you know, like you see today, Presco is a big producer. They do retail packaging of palm oil. Okomu is a big producer. They do retail packaging of palm oil. Saturn Farms, Nosak Farms in Benin is a big producer. They do retail packaging of palm oil. So if you actually look out for these products in the market, I think you will be in a safe position to buy palm oil.
What characterizes our meals today?
Greasy taste. Greasy taste. Coming from a lot of frying. You know, our food culture has actually changed very significantly lately, and you find that we eat lots of fried foods. People have gadgets in their homes now, deep fryers. So, you know, frying becomes a major part of the family's menu. People no longer, families in particular, would no longer follow, you know, a strict menu, as it were, for the family. Everybody decides to eat whatever they please, you know, whatever pleases them. You know, probably if, you know, this yummy thing you were talking about, you know, let's say eba with a goosey soup or good vegetable soup is, you know, prepared for the family. And then while at table, somebody, another member comes and looks at it and says, no, I prefer to eat, you know, French fries. Because there's a deep fryer in the house with lots of oil, you know, in it. So frying, you know, is a daily thing in most homes these days. And, you know, even the fast food outlets, they thrive more on these greasy, you know, tastes we're talking about. There is hardly any meal you will get, you know, when you order that there is nothing, or rather no component of it being fried. So that is where we are today in Nigeria.
As a cardiologist, where I come in primarily is to look at the effect of oils on the cardiovascular system. And basically we know that in Nigeria today, all over the world, Nigeria inclusive, there is a massive rise in the number of cardiovascular diseases that we are seeing. I mean, when I say cardiovascular diseases, I mean heart attacks, strokes, and the likes. In Nigeria, we know that the rate of these conditions have gradually climbed up, and a large number of these things are due to risk factors that we could prevent. Now, amongst those risk factors we could prevent is the consumption of oil. So, as had been said earlier, there are different types of oils, but usually the one we want to advise people to use are those that are unsaturated. So there are largely two types of those unsaturated. It could be monounsaturated, it could be polyunsaturated. Either way, unsaturated. Now, as the dietitian had said earlier, a simple way of differentiating the two is that the saturated ones, which we don't want people to eat, will congeal in room air. Okay. Whereas the unsaturated ones usually will not congeal in room air. Now, so we look at palm oil. Palm oil, as it is, I've seen the presentations, the ones that congeal, and going by the doctor in Benin's statement, obviously contains the ones that congeal contains largely the saturated part. So those ones are bad. Because I remember even generally as a young boy, my mom would say that the congealed one is bad, and the type of palm oil that doesn't congeal is better and is even more expensive. So even in our own social system, without having the scientific backup, they have an idea, or they had an idea of which palm oil is good, which one is bad. The ones that congeal are cheaper usually in the market.
The ones that sleep, if you use that, that's what they say, the ones that sleep.
Yes.
Okay, so that they can identify what we're talking about.
But the one that doesn't sleep, that stays oily throughout, usually more expensive in the market, is a better type of palm oil than the one that sleeps. So we now know that two types of oil, the saturated, the unsaturated. The saturated is the one that sleeps in, if you just put it down in a short while, it sleeps. The one that doesn't sleep is better. Now, even the one that doesn't sleep, the way we handle that oil is also important. So it might be good because it doesn't sleep, but you handle it wrongly. So for instance, in our homes these days, people, and in restaurants, they just have a deep fryer, like the Dacian said, pour their oil, and then they reheat it. Every time a customer comes, pouring their potato, sliced potato and fry, and they do that all day, the same oil. So when you keep doing that, heating and reheating, you start a chemical process that leads to, as Prof said, formation of trans fatty acids. Now, evidence have shown that trans fats are as bad, if not worse, than the saturated oil that congeals. So you might be eating your canola oil or your olive oil or any of the other sunflower oil, those that are said to be good because they are the ones that don't sleep, they are the unsaturated type, but you handle them wrongly.
In terms of a quality assessment, the best a consumer can do is visual assessment of what he or she is buying. We have what we call the free fatty acid, we have the peroxide value and all those other chemical quality characteristics which a normal consumer will not be able to do to assess the quality of what they are buying from the market. But if you look at palm oil the way it is, palm oil has two major fractions. The upper liquid layer, which we call the olein, and then the lower semi-solid layer, which we call the stearine. Now, when you are consuming palm oil, of course you eat all these layers. In palm oil, you also have minor components, the tocopherols and tocotrienols, that's the vitamin E components. You have carotenes, and then you have vitamin D and K. All these minor components have been shown in nutrition studies to suppress the atherosclerotic effect of the saturated components of palm oil. So you can eat palm oil the way it is and feel very safe.
How do you choose your cooking oil? What determines what type of oil that you choose to buy in the market? Is it the kind of food or the type of cooking you want to do?
When I started food business, I did a little research on the kind of oils people use, Then eventually, I found out that there were so many oils to name, but most people, most restaurants, most customers ask me specifically for the virgin olive oil. So it's a bit expensive, but I had to stick to that because that's what my customers want.
Do you use it for all? Is it an all-purpose oil
Okay,
for everything?
I'll tell you how I use it. I use the olive oil for cooking stew, for making sauce, but then when it comes to soup, I do oilless sometimes. I can make okra without oil, and it's been one of my best soups ever. Because people come, they're amazed how I can make okra and there's no drop of oil.
Do you bleach the olive oil that you buy? Do you bleach it, or do you fry it?
I don't even fry most times when I'm making stew. I boil. And when you blend your tomatoes and everything, you boil, then you pour the oil in it, so it cooks.
Whether it is monosaturated, polysaturated, or saturated, or whatever, we need to eat small portions. For example, when it comes to small chops, there are 4, 5 puff there, and so on. I may take one.
Puff, spring roll,
yes,
samosa.
Yes, I may take 1 or 2, because first of all they are deep fried, and very likely not very good oil. I'm sorry, we'll have to interject. Yes. Are there positive steps now that is put in place to address it? Just less than 30 seconds.
Yes, there are positive steps where we raid now markets for these bad oils. If it doesn't have our number, or we know that we've been tipped that they were smuggled in. So we do a lot of raids, and then our labeling is extremely important. The WHO has labeling guides, and if it doesn't have the type of label during approval, we will not approve. And then fortification is extremely important.
Right, that was the edition on cooking oil. Now, we witnessed the rise in the maltreatment of many Nigerians in diaspora in 2019. The incidents, of course, resulted in the death of many Nigerians in different countries, mostly in Africa, and it raised quite a lot of questions rather than answers.
Yes, the mass return of Nigerians from South Africa marked the climax of these abuses. An attempt was made to address the issue, as well as the actions of government and the philanthropic individuals and organizations targeted at helping the victims.
Xenophobic attacks against Africans in South Africa. The president was here to meet President Buhari, and he said they are embarrassed about what is going on there, and they'll do everything to stop it. And then sometimes, when it's time for elections, these things, have a way of rearing their heads. Now, in South Africa, with the intervention in particular of Mr. President, we have 4 policemen arrested. 4 policemen in court on trial for the alleged involvement in maltreatment of some Nigerians abroad. That has never happened. So that is a step South Africa has taken. And then we have some other cases of some people that are already in court. But again, in South Africa, we have some cases of Nigerians actually killing Nigerians. So we have some cases of drug cult wars, that is also very embarrassing to us. And so we break them down. But the key thing is that our mission in Joburg is actually doing a great job. They monitor the cases, they go to court, and we're waiting to see what happens. And at the same time, we always made it clear that it's not acceptable to us. Like the case of Ghana that you also showed. I was with the High Commissioner here, and the matter stopped. Recall that some time ago, President Buhari again met the president of Ghana in New York and complained about the closure of about 400 shops belonging to Nigerians. They are saying there is one law or the other. But whatever the case, the president, with President Buhari's intervention, actually opened those shops. And the recent one, another market attack, had to do with Ghanaians being angry that kidnappings occurred in their country. 5 Ghanaians were involved with 3 Nigerians, and out of anger, they just went to attack those shops. Again, we put up a big protest, and the High Commissioner assured us that the President of Ghana himself had intervened. The Inspector General of Police arrested some people. I think 2 people were arrested. But why we'll tell Nigerians, please behave yourselves wherever you find yourselves. Obey the laws of that country. We'll at the same time not accept. Number 2, we won't accept generalization of criminalization. So if you commit a crime, deal with that person, arrest that person. Don't go saying, oh, you're a Nigerian, I'll attack you. The same thing in Togo, where some Togolese guy and his girlfriend had an affair, had a quarrel. Then the next thing, they went to attack some Nigerians. Again, we have the Togolese High Commission, and I think another person has been arrested in that regard. So we don't want to generalize. It happens in some cases, but wherever it happens, we always intervene. And I keep saying we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we have a whole lot of the good who are doing great things all over the world. And we are going to ensure that we tap into those enormous human resources we have as Nigerians. So as we go on, as the cases come, we deal with them.
The pervasive corruption in the country has tarnished the image of Nigeria over the past few years. Subsequently, the perception of an average Nigerian abroad is that of a corrupt and dubious individual. And that, to a large extent, has contributed to the mistreatment and maltreatment of Nigerians abroad.
From your experience, what kind of treatment or perception, do you get, from, of course, from those in South Africa where you have been?
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much. The perception is actually not encouraging because the Nigerians that are actually in South Africa are not treated well. And it's not in news due to occurrence that are those things that have been occurring. But the fact is that not only Nigerians are being attacked or experiencing xenophobic attack in South Africa. We will be lying to say that it's just only Nigeria. But the issue is that we are not actually responsive like the other nationals have been. And that is the reason why that we have actually been a soft target. Vis-a-vis the fact that our people are engaging in some various activities also. That is actually not helping us as Nigerian citizens in South Africa. But we believe that with the establishment of this NIDOCOM, the Diaspora Commission, which their core function will be to actually focus on Nigerians in diaspora, will be able to address some of these issues because there are quite a number of reasons why Nigerians are sent back home in a body bag. There are deliberate, there are random, there are cases of Nigerians allegedly killing themselves. But the most important thing is that Nigerians are dying, and we need to actually address that. And those who are actually engaging in these activities, that is the Nigerians that are actually allegedly killing themselves, they are known to the community, and it's very, very easy to solve if the community as well as the government officials as well as the government can come together to actually tackle this issue of Nigerians allegedly killing Nigerians. And the issue of xenophobic attack, that are systemic, wherein if you're a Nigerian, you won't get what the help you are supposed to get there. Even our professionals, those who are engaging, who are actually contributing a lot to the country, you see them actually being maltreated, using the system to actually, sometimes they even block them out of system. And we see issue of extrajudicial killing, which is on the rise. The last 1 month we have had 3 extrajudicial killing, and then 7 of Nigerians have been killed by unknown assailants. So we believe that all of us have to work together now and send a strong signal. Thank you that the Excellency in the studio was actually alluding to the fact that it's a case of reciprocity. If we don't do anything, this thing will continue. I can cite an example of this issue of repatriation money when they were collecting from Nigerians, huge amount of money. Nigerian government rose up to the occasion, and South African government doesn't have choice than to actually abolish it. So our people are not being extorted, unlike before, wherein you have to pay a huge amount of money. So something has to be done because we don't know who is next as we speak.
You know, the consular and diplomatic services would offer. Some Nigerians complain that they don't get adequate service, as it were, from Nigerian missions. In most cases, they are left on their own, and the Nigerian missions, do not appear to serve their interests. So,
well, I think I will start first of all by urging that we should have correct data of Nigerians that are in prison, those that are on death row, because the figures I've given is a figure quoted by the civil society organization, but the Ministry of Foreign Affairs just last year released its own figure. It says about 16,000 Nigerians are in prison nationwide and worldwide, and that with about 800 that actually are awaiting death penalties, and 410 have been sentenced they are on death row. So that is the figure. And I think now that we have the Diaspora Commission, I believe they will be able to figure out how to have correct data and information about Nigerians. Now, having said that, I think the issue of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually needs to fashion out a new strategy of protecting the lives of Nigerians that live abroad, work, and engage in legitimate businesses. Our missions really have to be regingered. They need to raise up to the occasion, because we have this, we're a treaty to this consular services, and it is the responsibility of every mission to ensure that they pay visits to prisons, they give attention to Nigerians in diaspora, and report back to the headquarters. In fact, the NTA law states clearly that Nigerian missions are supposed to inform the NDLE about the number of people that are engaged or have been arrested on drug-related charges. I believe if you investigate further, perhaps that has not been done. Secondly,
what was it been done during your time, your period?
Well, we tried to do that. We had, in fact, we have an agreement that has been signed on the control of illicit drug and trafficking between Nigeria and Pakistan, and that was signed in 2015, when, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we brought the president of Pakistan to Nigeria. Unfortunately, I don't think that is being implemented. You see, we have dozens of agreements, bilateral agreements, multilateral agreements that deals with this issue. We have agreements on prisoner transfer, for example, in place. We also have the, well, as I said, we are also a treaty to the treaty. Yes. Now, the prisoner transfer issue, we could use that to address the inhuman conditions that Nigerians are undergoing in prisons, say in China. And I believe that now that we have the Diaspora Commission, perhaps they will look into that to ensure that at least Nigerians in prisons, they are still Nigerians, and it only diminishes our dignity and if we abandon them. So I believe that going forward, something will be done in that regard. Now, let me just say this. Yeah. You see, the Nigerian missions abroad have a great role to change the perception of Nigerians. They should engage the business community in their host countries, government officials, civil society organizations, and the media. Little money must be budgeted to propagate, to sell the good part of Nigeria.
It's nothing like when you do something in Nigeria, you violate the law, you get away with it. And when you go there, you violate their law, you get away with it. Like, we demand justice when Nigerians are maltreated abroad. But at the same time, we have Nigerians who are into various crimes in their countries. And we also try to educate Nigerians. We also try to sensitize through the missions, and we are happy we now have a NITCOM, Diaspora Commission, to address those issues, because Nigerians should abide by the extant laws of the host countries. So when we get into trouble, we do things that are not good, into crimes, you face the law.
Now, Nigeria's current wild polio virus status remains a milestone in the ongoing journey to achieve a global polio eradication.
Indeed, August 21 marked 3 years since the country reported a case of the virus, and of course generated a very robust public health discussion. It was a success for that sector. Rhoda and Blessing were on set for Good Morning.
How important is this for Nigeria? And secondly, how important is it for Africa?
Thank you very much. 2 days ago, exactly the 21st of August, 3 years without a single case of wild polio virus. That is huge. It is huge in terms of all the efforts that went into making sure that no child in Nigeria for 3 consecutive years has been paralyzed with the wild polio virus. Although it is huge, we're also well aware of how important it is for us to manage this success. It is a fragile success. This is only a milestone. Now, even more work is required in terms of intensifying and making sure that we sustain the tempo so that the process of certification, which just kicks in, will be successful.
Now, for the benefit of our viewers watching, what does poliomyelitis do when it attacks a person or a child?
Poliomyelitis paralyzes. It causes paralysis.
Okay.
But even the paralysis that we see is just a fraction of a number of kids that actually get infected
Okay.
Some of them die. Some of them are sick for a few days. But what is very obvious are those numbers that are paralyzed and are unable to go about their normal working days. They are unable to lead normal lives because they end up being in crutches or wheelchairs. So this is why it is really very important, especially given that just 7 years ago, Nigeria was responsible for more than half the number of white polio viruses globally. To now have a situation where Nigeria has exited that committee of nations that continuously spew out white polio viruses is huge. Pakistan, as of the last count, had some 48 wild-type polio viruses. Afghanistan had 12. And we had even much more in terms of the numbers of white polio viruses as recently as 7 years ago. So it is very, very huge.
Well, for us, it's been a very long journey internationally because we started this journey, as a matter of fact, in 1985, when Rotary proposed to World Health Organization that this is something that can be done because we did a pilot project in the Philippines a few years earlier, which was very successful. We got WHO convinced of that, and of course, through the vehicle of WHO, we were able to get the World Health Assembly to form the Global Polio Eradication Initiative and make polio eradication a priority. So it's 3 decades more. So we're very, very delighted as to the progress we've made with the government in the lead and all supporting, that program.
This is great because it means we're at the brink of making history. Nigeria being the last country in Africa, the African region, this means the whole of Africa region will be certified polio-free, hopefully by middle of next year. And it means we salute the government, that leadership from the government. We embrace the partnership that help us to move to this level. And importantly, the parents who have taken the responsibility ensure that they protect the children by accepting the vaccines, get the children to be vaccinated, and finally our health workers who even through difficult situations able to reach all the children. Now the task is more rigorous for us to get to the last mile. Means we need to do more in terms of supplemental immunization or immunization campaigns that are being conducted. We need to do more on the surveillance. We need to do more on outreaches and make sure every child that is eligible should be vaccinated. This should be the target. So that by March next year, Nigeria can present the papers to the African Regional Certification Committee and make sure that the whole continent is free.
Yes, some Nigerians are also participating in this program by way of sending messages via tweets. And we have first Chris Simeon. Indeed, ex-governors who held political office for 4 or 8 years are not qualified for pension. Pension should be given to retired civil or public servants who served the state for many years.
And Mogbala Babs also has his views. He said, just to summarize what he has said, sadly, some of these ex-governors are still in the Senate collecting humongous allowances.
Okay, Law Alpha C. I remember I said the payment of pension to former governors has no moral justification, and the scheme is criminally, greedily, and selfishly motivated and should not stand.
And another one from Chris Simeon, he says he recollects, excuse me, maltreatment of Nigerians abroad, which he said was as a result of bad images we are projected to outside the world. He said, let's amend our ways so that people will say good things about us.
Well, I wonder why all of them are so particular about the pension issue. But opinion has a different take. Say thanks for the interesting 2019 review program. That's of course commending Good Morning Nigeria for doing a review of some of the editions that made 2019.
Yes, and Ayola Tawhida then also talked about the pensions for ex-governors. He describes it as act of wickedness and prays that God helps us. All right. Those are the tweets that we have received so far. Let's go over to the foreign scene and join Oyemi Ajayi.
At least 11 soldiers were killed in Burkina Faso as Burkina Babes were mourning dozens of victims who had died in double attacks targeting the country's north a day earlier. The attacks were said to be the worst assaults in the country for 5 years, which had at least 35 civilians, mostly women, and 7 soldiers died in Abinda town and at a military base in the volatile Somme province. The army confirmed the death of 80 assailants who lost their lives during gunfire exchanges. Now elsewhere, Japan has hung a Chinese man for the high-profile and brutal murder of a family of 4, the first execution of a foreigner in 10 years. The man, Wei Wei, carried out the murders in 2003 with 2 accomplices. They fled to China, where one was executed in 2005 and the other sentenced to life in jail. Japan has more than 100 prisoners on death row. 15 were executed last year, including 13 members of the Shurinkyo Doomsday Cult.
All right, and those are the highlights for today's review on Good Morning Nigeria. We have much more to go, but that will come on Monday next week. I am Claire Delabu Abdurazak. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. Thank you indeed for being part of our show today. We'll see you again on Monday.